the way I learned about this transgender thing is I have 2 daughters in their 30s, and about 10 years ago they started talking about all of these different genders, and non-binary and transgender, and I went along with it because I thought it was about being gay, and so that's people express themselves. So I moved into here at the River City Co-op with my daughter about 5 years ago, and it was just a temporary situation until I could get my place. And they have a transgender policy, and it's a co-op, and you make decisions about things collectively. So we were always having business meetings about doing the dishes and that kind of thing. And before every meeting, we had to go around and give our pronouns. And I went around, and I didn't think anything of it. It was like, oh yeah, let's be aware of gender. That's great. And there were people living there who were posing as the opposite sex, and so we had to be careful about that and make them feel included. And I had no problem with this. And then the next thing was that I joined the Iowa City Press Co-op. I'm an artist, and I wanted to learn there and even share what I know and give workshops and that kind of thing. And there's a man there who has a woman's name, and he says that he's transgender. He's totally not changed in any way. He's tall and balding, and he wears men's clothes, and he's a man. But everybody at this group referred to him as she, and when they talked to me about him, they used the word she, and they expected me to say she. And I was very uncomfortable about this, but I thought, well, I don't know anything, what do I know? I can respect it, but it made me feel uncomfortable. But I even let that go. And then I started seeing it everywhere. At the Women's Resource and Action Center, there's a big sign on the door that says, people of all genders welcome here. What does that even mean? And every other group, like at the women's, the Rape Victims Advocacy Program, which is someplace, I actually did go there to get services, and they sent me a letter saying that I have to accept transgender people in my group. And I wrote back to them, I said, what does that mean? Some guy who's raised his whole life as a man is going to be in my group and listen to me talk about the personal things about, and I can't even say, wait, let's talk about it? Can't we, as a culture, talk about this and see if this is something we all want to do? Anyway, so I started studying. Somehow the idea of gender has gotten reified as if it's like a specific physical objective thing. And instead of allowing people to just be in their bodies, you have to change their body to fit an idea, a concept of behavior that changes culturally all over the world as people have different ideas of what appropriate gender behavior is. Okay, so this is the deal. People have XX or XY chromosomes, and that's what makes you a man or a woman, and not what the ideas in your head and not your behavior. And the DSM-5 has all kinds of information about why thinking you're the other sex is a psychological disorder of paraphilia. I've got some information about autogynephilia. Autogynephilia is straight men, heterosexual men, who get sexual stimulation from the idea of imagining themselves as women. Most men who are transgender don't actually go through the surgery. They actually still have their penises. Okay, and this is just me. I really feel like the idea that we're spreading this without letting people talk about it is kind of a sociopathic thing to do. And it's kind of confusing because originally what they had was, you were talking about the intersex situation where they changed, somebody is born with ambiguous
genitalia.
Right. And these people are sterile, they're not able to have children. So that's one part of this. But intersexual people are not transgender, they're just intersexual. They have a chromosome disorder. But the transgender try to say that because there's intersexual people that having a gender is a fluid sort of thing. But if you have one of these chromosome disorders, it's a disorder. It's not a choice. It's not part of the spectrum. So originally they came up with this surgery. It was partly, they started doing it because of the intersexual thing. They wanted, you know, the kids to look normal. So if somebody was born intersexual, then they would, with ambiguous genitalia, then they would do these plastic surgeries to have someone look normal. The transgender, or the intersex community now says leave people be. It doesn't help to do the surgery on them. So there's that. And then they use these techniques that they had developed for forcing someone into one sex or the other for homosexual men with internalized homophobia who were very uncomfortable with being male and really wanted to be female. And there are, let's see, some of the terms for that is gender dysphoria, and it's a real thing that psychologists will, you know, it's a real thing that you feel uncomfortable in your body as a sex that it is. But this is a psychological problem, and it isn't going to be fixed by changing the outside of a person's body, because you're still you inside. Then what happened was, there were a lot of men who were signing up for it, and it was like male to female, okay? Which is basically castration. It isn't, they're not really changing the sex of the person, they're just taking their genitals off. Okay, where was I? Okay, so then during the 90s, when the AIDS thing was happening, a lot of these men wanted to have the surgery, but the surgeons were loath to do the surgeries because of the AIDS. They were afraid of, you know, contamination. So what they had a new thing. These men would say, okay, well, I can't have the surgery, but I am really a woman inside. And that's where the idea of the transgender came, that you didn't actually have to have surgery. Now, the thing about transgender is it includes the cross-dressing paraphilia, autogynephilia, which is an even more severe form of that, and men getting their jollies off by running around in women's clothes. Now what's happening, though, is that especially in the UK, there's been a 4,000% increase in girls, young girls, saying that they're transgender and going for these surgeries. The other thing about that is that most of the boys and girls that they're lining up to have these surgeries are gay or lesbian. If you leave them alone, they'll grow up to be gay or lesbian. So basically, this is gay eugenics. They're like, you know. Oh, dysmorphia is the feeling that your body's wrong. Okay, so this is the way it used to be. This is what I think. Lesbian, gay, bisexual. Your kids are fine the way they are. You don't have to be concerned if they're gender non-conforming. That's all right. But when the T came in, they're saying your children are defective and we're here to correct their abnormalities with drugs, clothing, accessories, and multiple surgeries. Okay, so I'm going to be going into a little bit about the money behind this, you know, why this is suddenly mushroomed like this. So, okay, there's this initiative in Canada. It's called the Sexual Orientation and Gender Identity 123, SOGI 123. And this is an organization. If you go to this link, they've got pages and pages and pages about how to rush your kids into sexual reassignment. And making kids feel, little kids, question about whether their bodies are, you know, whether they're really male or female. And they get a lot of money from these billionaires.
Soros.
What?
George Soros.
Yes. Well, I'll be talking about that. And then here's this other thing. This is a new psychological disorder. It's called rapid onset gender identity disorder. And this is the one where the girls are like, there will be groups of girls in schools all of a sudden just saying we're really boys. And so they call this rapid onset gender identity disorder. Like they're girls all their lives, but actually they're like lesbian girls. And then suddenly they read up a lot of stuff online, and you know, it's called social contagion, you know. Okay, and then here's this other one. This is in the UK. They also get money from they're like front groups who get money to put this in the schools and teach kids that their bodies are, you know, imaginary. So Stonewall UK, which used to be for gays and lesbians, they are totally pushing the transgender thing. If you look at their funding, their transgenders up here and gay and lesbian are here in terms of what they're spending money on. They're planning this. It is, you know, they have a plan. At first we do this, then we do this, then we do this, and it's about going into schools and, yeah. So what's happening in the UK is that it's called the Gender Recognition Act, and back in 2010 they passed a law saying that for transsexual people, once they had a medical certificate and made the transition and lived as the person of the opposite sex for a certain number of years, then they would be considered that they had changed their sex. So what they decided to do then was the Gender Recognition Act is to take all, all you have to do is go online and press a button and that changes your sex. So they're trying to pass this, and Stonewall is behind it, and they're also going into the schools and pushing this propaganda in the schools. And what's happening now is that social services will actually take a child out of the home if the parents don't confirm the child's gender identity. So if your boy comes home and says he's a girl and you don't agree with him, the state can come in and take that child away from you and then give them the surgery. Okay, next one.
That's in Canada?
Yeah, it's in Canada, but it's coming here too. Oh, California.
And Oregon.
Yeah.
Oh.
World Professional Association for Transgender Health admits that only 6 to 23% of boys and 12 to 20% of girls treated in gender clinics persist with gender dysphoria into adulthood. So this is McHugh, and he's with the Johns Hopkins, and he was one of the original people who was doing these surgeries at Johns Hopkins, and then he realized that it wasn't such a good thing. So here's what he's got all kinds of accolades and, just a very strong scientific background. And so he's one of the guys who's saying, we need to think about it. Okay, so this is what's happening locally. Oh, this is the guy. This is his services. Okay? This is what he's doing to kids. This intersex disorders has nothing to do with gender identity. It's not even in this, one is an emotional problem and one is a chromosomal physical problem.
But it's to their social and psychological advantage to intermix the two.
Yeah, well, you confuse them and people think they're the same thing.
You give it a patina of scientific legitimacy.
Mm-hmm. Okay, and basically he's a shrink. He's got some clinical experience with disorders of menstruation, so he knows how to give hormones for controlling menstruation. But basically, he's giving kids. He does the ADHD and medicating kids on the yin yang. That's his idea. Give drugs to kids. Okay, so this is the evidence about how bad these drugs are. They cause heart disease. I know that I can't take any kind of hormones because of the cancer risk, okay? But they're just randomly giving them to kids. Anyway, it's called Lupron. And Lupron was originally a drug that was used for cancer treatment for testicular cancer, and also they used it in endometriosis. Yeah, that's good, that's it. And so this is one of the drugs that they give to the kids who come in and say, oh, I think I'm a boy. And they say, okay, here, we're going to whap you. We're going to give you this puberty blocker. It'll keep your body from developing. So what it does is it causes bone deformation. She lost her joints, her jaw joint and her back. Her teeth are falling out. And so they're giving this. There's no long-term testing because why? You couldn't just randomly test kids with this poison, so there's no long-term studies, but everything that's coming up is that it's really bad for children's bodies. And it also affects brain development. It keeps your brain from developing. It's really crazy. So this is, some people are trying to talk back, and so online I pick up these things, and this is the the contagion thing. They're telling kids that they could be born in the wrong body. And you know, so if you're a kid and you know you're a little girl and you find you're attracted, you want to be hugging your girlfriend, right? But your culture's telling you no, that girls aren't supposed to like to hug other girls, and so they feel like they're different, and then as a remedy they're past this thing that your body is indeterminate. Okay, next one. Okay, this is hard. When I started looking at the pictures of what they are actually doing to kids, these are 3 middle schoolers. This is in my blog, I got this story. They're like in groups declaring that they're transgender and then going and they're giving them hormones and puberty blockers. Here's another group of kids. These are all girls who had their breasts chopped off. And this is what it looks like to chop off a girl who's just going through puberty. Okay, next one. And then this is what they have to do. This is when they put, they take the meat off of your arm and the skin off of your arm and then some more out of your leg so that they can fashion this penis. And then and it doesn't work, it's like permanently like that. And you can't really, there's no sexual feeling there at all because it's all removed. So this is the horror that they're trying to sell to kids, but you won't see this. They're just like, oh, it's so much fun, unicorns and teddy bears, rainbows and lollipops. Next one.
And they can't have orgasms because
No.
it's been mutilated.
And they're sterilized. You can't have children.
They're sterilized.
This is another thing that's happening. The Midwives Association of North America, some of the Pritzker Foundation had people put on the MANA, American Midwives Association, who pushed this transgender thing, and they got rid of all of the words that said mother or woman, and they say pregnant person, birthing person. They want to take woman out of birthing. So this is a woman. And this woman is on a fuck ton of hormones, excuse me, which are going to affect this baby that's inside of her. Okay, this is child abuse. This is a man. He's also on a whole lot of hormones, and this is what's being. Oh, this is just lovely, you know. This is what trans looks like. Okay, next one. Like the heck with the next generation.